Hello, passengers, co-pilots, shotgun callers, blunderbuss bellowers, and midnight riders. Welcome to another episode of Full Moon Empty Road. As always, I'm Jeremy, and I'll be your driver tonight. Hope everybody had a great week, and I hope you're ready for another road trip. We're going to be staying in the south tonight, but we don't have one particular destination. We're going to be going all over the southeastern region tonight, and well, more or less just the south. And we're going to take a look at a few cryptids. So get in, buckle up, grab the rock salt, and let's ride. We have work to do. Our first stop brings us to Newport, Arkansas, home of the White River Monster. In Arkansas, the White River Monster is a large creature reportedly first spotted off the banks of the White River near Newport in northeastern Arkansas. Although reported in the press as a monster, it is reported to be deeply loved by neighborhood residents near the portion of the White River, and the monster is referred to locally as Whitey. Some believe the White River Monster may have affected the Civil War. The river was used for transportation, and the monster was supposedly responsible for overturning a boat. Sightings of the monster began in 1915 on July 1st of that year. An owner of a plantation near the river saw the monster. He reported it having gray skin as wide as a car and 3 cars long. As the news spread, construction of a rope net began, but ended due to lack of money and materials. In the first week of 1937, recreational fishermen noticed that they were finding it hard to land many fish, and the creature was spotted again and reported to Bramlett Bateman, a nearby plantation owner, who later confirmed the sighting, describing it as having the skin of an elephant, 4 or 5 feet wide by 12 feet long, with the face of a catfish, lolling on the surface of the water. Feeling the creature was a threat to his crops, he intended to blow up the eddy where the creature was spotted with TNT, but area authorities denied necessary permission. A minor media sensation resulted in visitors from across the nation, some bringing cameras, explosives, and a machine gun, and when no more sightings were made, when a plan to capture it with a giant net failed, and when a deep-sea diver failed to find the creature, Bateman was thought to have created a hoax despite over 100 confirmed sightings recorded during the short period of excitement. The White River Monster was sighted again in the summer of 1971. That year, eyewitnesses who encountered the creature described it as the size of a boxcar with a bone protruding from its forehead. It looked as if the thing was peeling all over, but it was a smooth type of skin or flesh, said one, and it made strange noises that sounded like a combination of a cow's moo and a horse's neigh. How would that sound? I don't even want to try that. Other accounts of the White River Monster described 3-toed tracks 14 inches in length on Towhead Island leading down to the river through a path of bent trees and crushed bushes. In 1973, the Arkansas State Legislature they signed into law a bill by Senator Robert Harvey creating the White River Monster Refuge along the White River. The area is located between the southern point of the river, known as the Old Grand Glaze, and the northern point of White River, known as Rosie. It's illegal to harm the monster inside that refuge. Some believe it is just a misidentified known species. Biologist Roy Mackle was persuaded by the monster. Biologist Roy Mackle was persuaded that the monster was an elephant seal. Joe Nickel has criticized this conclusion due to the White River being well out of the range of elephant seals. His conclusion is that the monsters were Florida manatees, also known as sea cows. The White River Monster was featured in the 2009 Lost Tapes episode of the same name, White River Monster. The White River Monster features in author J.K. Rowling's writings as a magical creature whose spines are used as wand cores by American wizards. So, let me know what you think about the White River Monster. Our second destination brings us to the northern part of Virginia, home of the Bunny Man. And you'll recognize this from the short story I uploaded earlier this week. And after reading about the Bunny Man, I was like, I wonder if there's a story. I knew there were stories about it. I had seen them, so I figured let's go find one and read it. And to be honest, it was a bit of a ridiculous story, but I figured it fit with the narrative this week. The Bunny Man is an urban legend that originated from two incidents in Fairfax County, Virginia in 1970, but has been spread throughout the Washington, D.C. and Maryland areas. The legend has many variations. Most involve a man wearing a rabbit costume who attacks people with an axe or a hatchet. Now, if you go to, this cracked me up during my research. If you go to Wikipedia, there's a picture of a hatchet mounted on a plaque that has the caption, "Actual hatchet used by the Bunny Man in 1970. Most of the stories occur around the Colchester Overpass, a southern railway overpass spanning Colchester Road near Clifton, Virginia, sometimes referred to as Bunny Man Bridge. Versions of the legend vary in the Bunny Man's name, motives, weapons, victims, description of the bunny costume or lack thereof, and sometimes even the possible death. In some accounts, victims' bodies are mutilated, and in other variations, the Bunny Man's ghost or aging specter is said to come out of his place of death each year on Halloween to commemorate his passing. Commemorate his passing and yours with a damn hatchet, apparently. Fairfax County Public Library historian and archivist Brian A. Conley extensively researched the Bunny Man legend. He has located two incidents of a man in a rabbit costume threatening people with an axe. The vandalism reports occurred 10 days apart in 1970 in Burke, Virginia. The first incident was reported the evening of October 19, 1970 by U.S. Air Force Academy cadet Robert Bennett and his fiancée who were visiting relatives on Guinea Road in Burke. Around midnight, while returning from a football game, they reportedly parked their car in a field on Guinea Road to visit an uncle who lived across the street from where the car was parked. As they sat in the front seat with the motor running, they noticed something moving outside the rear window. Moments later, the front passenger window was smashed and there was a white-clad figure standing near the broken window. Bennett turned the car around while the man screamed at them about trespassing, including, "You're on private property and I have your tag number." As they drove down the road, the couple discovered a hatchet on the car floor. While the police requested a description of the man, Bennett insisted he was wearing a white suit with long bunny ears. However, Bennett's fiancée contested their assailant did not have bunny ears on his head, but was wearing a white capriote of some sort, or capirote. They both remembered seeing his face clearly, but in the darkness they could not determine his race. The police returned the hatchet to Bennett after the investigation. The second reported sighting occurred on the evening of October 29, 1970, when construction security guard Paul Phillips approached a man standing on the porch of an unfinished home. This was in Kings Park West on Guinea Road. Phillips said the man was wearing a gray, black, and white bunny costume and was about 20 years old. Said he stood about 5 foot 8 inches tall and weighed about 175 pounds. The man began chopping at a porch post with a long-handled axe, saying, "You are trespassing. If you come any closer, I'll chop off your head." He sounds delightful. The Fairfax County Police opened investigations into both incidents, but both were eventually closed for lack of evidence. In the weeks following the incident, more than 50 people contacted the police claiming to have seen the Bunny Man. Several newspapers, including the Washington Post, reported that the bunny man had eaten a man's runaway cat. The Post articles that mentioned this incident were Man in Bunny Suit Sought in Fairfax. That was on October 22nd, 1970. The Rabbit Reappears on October 31st, 1970. Bunny Man Seen. That was on November 4th, 1970. Bunny Reports Are Multiplying. November 6th, 1970. In 1973, Patricia Johnson, a student at the University of Maryland, College Park, submitted a research paper that chronicled precisely 54 variations on the two incidents. The 2011 slasher film Bunny Man is an exploitation-style version of the story. The 2017 Amazon original series Lore, based on the podcast of the same name, uses the Bunny Man legend to introduce the second episode of Season 1. In the Chris Gethard Show episode, Let's Get Scared, host Chris Gethard dresses as the Bunny Man for the full episode. In 2015, nonfiction author Jenny Coulter Lopez published a full-length feature in Northern Virginia magazine titled Long Live the Bunny Man. On October 9th, 2020, Adult Swim broadcast the story of the Bunny Man as a bump during an episode of Family Guy. Published in the spring of 2021, the short story anthology Dark Words, Stories of Urban Legends and Folklore features the horror story The Bunny Man's Salvation by Alex Norcross, which follows a local teenager as he investigates the haunted bridge. Now, I just want to point out I had never actually heard of the anthology series there. So my use of Dark Words, Dark Things was a play on a Game of Thrones line. I believe it was Dark Words on Dark Wings. But I just want to let that be known. Bunny Man Brewing in Fairfax, Virginia, was named after the urban legend. The owners Sam Gray and Eric Barrett decided on the name based on the stories they'd heard growing up in Fairfax. So, that's a little bit of history on the Bunny Man. Let me know what you think. Our third destination takes us to Cajun country in Louisiana, home of the Rougarou. The Rougarou is a legendary creature in French communities linked to traditional concepts of the werewolf. Rougarou represents a variant pronunciation and spelling of the original French loup-garou. According to Barry-Jean Ancelet, or is that Ancelet? It's probably Ancelet since it's French, an academic expert on Cajun folklore and professor at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette in America. The tale of the Rougarou is a common legend across French Louisiana. Both words are used interchangeably in southern Louisiana. Some people call the monster Rougarou, others refer to it as the loup-garou. The Rougarou legend has been spread for many generations, either directly from French settlers to Louisiana or via the French-Canadian immigrants centuries ago. And before I continue on, if this sounds different from just a second ago, I've got a weird setup today, and I just kind of tried to finagle it where it's a little bit easier on me. So if it sounds a little bit different, it's because I did have to pause this, and now I'm coming back after getting my setup fixed. Anyhow, in the Cajun legends, the creature is said to prowl the swamps around Acadiana and Greater New Orleans, and the sugarcane fields and woodlands of the regions. The Rougarou most often is described as a creature with a human body and the head of a wolf or a dog, similar to the werewolf legend. Often, the storytelling has been used to inspire fear and obedience. One such example is stories that have been told by elders to persuade Cajun children to behave. According to another variation, the wolf-like beast will hunt down and kill Catholics who do not follow the rules of Lent. This coincides with the French Catholic loup-garou stories, according to which the method for turning into a werewolf is to break Lent 7 years in a row. A common blood-sucking legend says that the Rougarou is under the spell for 101 days. After that time, the curse is transferred from person to person when the Rougarou draws another human's blood. During the day, that creature returns to human form. Although acting sickly, the human refrains from telling others of the situation for fear of being killed. Other stories range from the Rougarou as a rabbit to the Rougarou being derived from witchcraft. In the latter claim, only a witch can make a Rougarou, either by turning into a wolf herself or by cursing others with lycanthropy. The Rougarou is mentioned as having come to Dakota consciousness from Ojibwa folktales and figures both thematically and experimentally in the narrative of Peter Matheson in The Spirit of Crazy Horse. The NBA team formerly known as the New Orleans Hornets filed for several new name trademarks, and among one was the Rougarou. The creature is featured in an episode of Cajun Justice, an A&E television show. A camp owner alerted authorities and videotaped what he suspected to be a Rougarou in the weeds behind his camp. The legend of the Rougarou plays a prominent role in history. In the History Channel television series Cryptids, the Swamp Beast. An unknown creature has been mutilating and killing animals and perhaps humans in southern Louisiana. Some locals attribute the attacks to a Rougarou. Similarly, in episode 6 of Swamp Mysteries, Troy Landry discusses the Rougarou legend while hunting a creature killing pets at Voodoo Bayou. The novel Hagridon by Samuel Snoke Brown features heavy usage of the Cajun version of the Rougarou. In late 2014, Cedar Point Theme Park in Sandusky, Ohio announced plans to renovate the existing Mantis roller coaster into Rougarou for the 2015 season. In 2015, short film Atchafalaya, Atchafalaya centers around a game warden searching in a Louisiana swamp for a missing person who is hinted to have been taken by a Rougarou. The creature is only vaguely seen in the film with a head resembling a bear. A Rougarou is the monster of the week in Season 4, Episode 4 of Supernatural. And believe it or not, that was actually the first time I'd ever heard of that, back when I started picking that show up. At least that I can remember, that was the first time I'd ever heard of it. The Rougarou is incorporated into the story of an episode of the American television show NCIS New Orleans. In the episode, a victim is killed while investigating a possible sighting of the Rougarou, which occurs in the 20th episode of the 6th season. The novel Empire of Wild by Sherry Demoline is inspired by the traditional Metis story of the Rougarou, a werewolf-like creature that haunts the roads and woods of Metis communities. Or is that Matisse? The comic series Wildlife by Pascal Lapras features a Rougarou as an antagonist in the Chapter 5 Monster. In Chapter 5 titled Monster. The show Shadow of the Rougarou, which is from 2022 on Apple TV Plus, by Matisse director Jordan Wanch, was created with the guidance of elders and knowledge keepers in order to best represent the communal oral story. So, let me know your thoughts on Rougarous. That was one I was actually looking forward to doing, and come to find out I can't pronounce half of the names that they use because it's French Louisiana kind of thing. Sorry about that. But I do hope you enjoyed learning about it. Now, our fourth stop brings us to White Bluff, Tennessee, home of the White Bluff Screamer. Now, I couldn't really find, like most of the other cryptids on this episode, I found information on like Wikipedia, so it kind of gives a good backstory and then like how it's seen in pop culture and stuff like that. Well, the White Bluff Screamer, I couldn't find much of anything on, so I'm going to be pulling from a website for the White Bluff Screamers. Since there isn't a lot of information on it. So this will be more of a story than documented history. And the following story comes from onlyinyourstate.com. There's something about small towns that seem to attract the strange and unusual. It's the best setting for an eerie horror film and the perfect space for strange goings-on. The loneliest of towns are prone to haunting overtures that rushing cities don't seem to encompass, unless you've watched Rosemary's Baby. Here in Tennessee, we have our share of gory legends and strange tales, but the stories from the town of White Bluff take the cake, and not the very good cake. This is creepy stuff. The town of White Bluff, Tennessee is a quiet, community-oriented space located on the expansive western plain of the state. It's a small town that truly exudes the heart of the South, welcoming visitors with a solid bout of hospitality and good-naturedness. Which is pretty much anywhere you go in Tennessee. You know, if you want my honest opinion on that, you're going to find good people everywhere. There is a secret to White Bluff, though. A dark story that has grisly beginnings stretching back almost a century to the 1920s. It's a legend of stark horror, trimmed with eerie edges and bound to keep you up late at night. It's the tale of the White Screamer. Folks, an anonymous monster that can't quite seem to leave. There's a natural hollow in White Bluff skirted by forest and deep Tennessee beauty, and back in the 1920s a young family built their home on the land. The newcomers consisted of a father and mother as well as 7 little ones. It was the perfect family and the perfect spot to begin again, or so they thought. It didn't take long for the family to recognize some strange going-ons about the farm, but their worst fears ignited into horror in the middle of the night. That was when the screaming began. Every night, their world erupted with ungodly wailing and crying and screeching that would terrify the children and chill the parents deep in their bones. Finally, as the story goes, the young man became enraged with the violent night antics and took his gun into the woods in the middle of the night, yelling for and seeking the strange screaming creature. As he rounded the property, he realized the sound was becoming louder, more shrill, more clear. It wasn't a screamer at all. It was a whole crowd of them. And he hurried back towards his home only to discover his greatest nightmare. What he found was his family hacked to bits, body parts strewn across the whole of his home. The home that once was a safe haven and a new beginning had suddenly become a terror in the space of a single night. Some believe that the White Screamer is actually a banshee, a legend that spawned from Irish origin and details a monster that follows families and foretells death. According to the local community, the White Screamer can still be heard haunting White Bluff, and the town isn't shy about their strange monster. They've learned to live in tandem with the spirit, and you're bound to hear a different angle from everyone that calls the gorgeous town home. So that's the story of the White Bluff Screamer, and again, credit goes to onlyinyourstate.com for the story of the creature. Let me know what you think. So, for our 5th and final destination, we'll be heading down to Florida, because all the crazy things happen down in Florida. And that is Florida, but I'm country, so I say Florida. We're headed to the home of the skunk ape. Skunk ape, also known as the swamp ape and Florida Bigfoot, is a purported ape-like creature said to inhabit some forests and swamps in southeastern United States, notably in Florida. Otherwise, why would it? Well, it's not actually called it's the skunk ape. Anywho, the skunk ape is sometimes compared to, synonymous with, or called the cousin of Bigfoot, a prominent subject within North American pop culture. You and I both know who Bigfoot is. Articles have been presented in an attempt to prove the skunk ape's existence, including anecdotal sightings, disputed photographs, audio and video recordings, and footprints. The majority of mainstream scientists have historically discounted the existence of the skunk ape, considering it to be the result of a combination of folklore, misidentification, and hoax, rather than a living being, or a living animal. The skunk ape has permeated into pop culture of the southern United States, especially in Florida. The skunk ape is often reported to be smaller in stature compared to the traditional descriptions of Bigfoot from the northern U.S. and Canada. It is named for its foul odor, often described as being similar to a skunk. The skunk ape has been recorded as appearing in Florida, Georgia, and Alabama folklore since European settlers first occupied the region in 1818. Local newspapers reported a story from what is now Apalachicola, Florida, that spoke of a man-sized monkey raiding food stores and stalking fishermen along the shore. Seminole culture includes stories of a foul-smelling, physically powerful, and secretive creature called Esti Kapaki, a name which roughly translates to furry tall man or hairy giant. Now, it's Seminole culture, and it's also another culture, but I'll go ahead and say it. But when I read it, I was like, I'm not sure if I know how to. I don't know how to pronounce that one. I'm afraid I'm gonna butcher it. But it looks like Miccosukee culture or Miccosukee. But it looks like Miccosukee. But I don't recognize that one, so that's probably, I don't know. But that's how it looks. So anyhow. In 1929, a sighting occurred at the famous and then recently constructed Perky Bat Tower at the Florida Keys. Witnesses reported that an unknown ape-like beast was drawn to the construction site. After inspecting the bat tower shortly after it had been stocked with bats, the creature shook the tower, driving off the bats before running into the woods. In 1942, a man in Suwannee County reported a similar creature rushing out from the brush line when he was driving down an isolated road. It was alleged to have grabbed onto his vehicle and beat on the running board and door for half a mile before departing. In the small community of Barden, in Putnam County, Florida, beginning in the 1940s, there were a number of alleged sightings of a creature that came to be known as the Barden Booger. Sounds like something my grandparents would have called me when I was a kid. In the 1960s, a rash of sightings in Central Florida happened around Alachua County and Marion County. One such report from 1963 involved several members of a family encountering an ape-like creature around a rural home, including one instance of it approaching a window to peer inside at night. Most anecdotal reports and alleged visual evidence are deemed to be fabrication or hoaxes. Skeptical investigator Joe Nickel has written that some of the reports may represent sightings of the American black bear, possibly some suffering from mange, and it is likely other sightings are hoaxes or general misidentification of wildlife. The United States National Park Service considers the skunk ape to be a hoax. Oops. Ignore that, my microphone just fell. Alright, so I'm actually going to leave that in there. That I went back to re-listen to see how bad that was, and I'm going to leave that in. That kind of cracked me up. So you guys got to hear my microphone fall down. It's been kind of a difficult episode so far. I've not gotten my normal setup today, so I'm kind of having to wing it, you know. Anyhow, we're going to continue on. The skunk ape has been widely adopted across Florida as an unofficial mascot for wilderness and rural culture. I can't say the word rural. Including appearing in roadside businesses and attractions, television commercials, and on signs. During the onset of COVID-19 During the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, one Florida business used the skunk ape's reportedly foul smell to promote social distancing. And that is the skunk ape And if you were here at the end of this one, thank you so much. This has been one of the more difficult episodes for me to have to record as of late, and it's kind of getting aggravating there towards the end. I've got all sorts of little errors and stuff throughout this one. I do apologize for that. But like we established early on, I stumble over my words. Sometimes I can't even read. Sometimes I can't even pronounce at all. Like I think that was from the Nightwire short story that had a word I was like, I can't even say it. Basically, the word I was going for was whatever word would describe in a peculiar manner, but I couldn't do it. Anywho, so that was 5 Southern Cryptids, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you want to follow me more than just on this podcast, you can find me at FMER Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. Both of those are FMER Podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at FullMoonEmptyRD. And you can find me on TikTok at FullMoonEmptyRoad. Tell your friends and family about it, please. If they enjoy this kind of stuff, I would love to have more listeners. I'm wanting this channel to start growing again. It seems like it kind of stalled out, and then honestly took a nosedive. And so I've been kind of networking on social media and stuff, trying to get more people here. But tell your friends and family about it. Have them come check it out, and have them tell them about it. Tell them what we do here, and to enjoy it. If anybody has a short story they would like read, or if they have a location they would like me to discuss, or any sort of thing they'd like me to discuss on the History and Hauntings or Dark Words, Dark Things section, you can reach out to me at fullmoonemptyroad@gmail.com. Drop me a line there, tell me your story. I'll even give you, I know it's going to reach 5 people, so it's not that big a deal, but I'll give you a shout out on the episode. I've actually, this one took me a little bit longer than I would have liked to write. One of the things I do want to mention is there was one of the cryptids I was going to use, and it cracked me up because it was called the knot deer, and it was based in the Appalachian area. But I couldn't really find like a breakdown of what it was, when it started, and all this stuff. It was more just like eyewitness accounts, and I was like, I don't really want to go with that. And mostly because, aside from doing podcasts, one of the things, I used to be a pretty avid reader, not anymore since my Kindle kind of crapped out and I haven't replaced it yet. But I used to be a pretty avid reader. Now, back when I was a teenager, my first full novel series that I ever read was called the Sword of Truth series. And I think it was in book 2. There was a character in it described as the chicken that wasn't a chicken, or the chicken that's not a chicken, or something like that. And the knot deer made me think of that. So I was like, I've got to put that in the episode. But I couldn't find a lot of information on it other than just, a deer that's not quite a deer. So I was like, well, maybe one day I will actually put together an episode strictly around that and see if I can find some information enough to stretch that at least 10, or maybe find a short story on it. That might be a good idea, kind of like how I did the Bunny Man's Curse. So that might be something to look into. Anyway, also, and I've not mentioned this in a while, but listener support is on. If you want to support the channel, you can go on Spotify or Anchor, whichever one you use. I think most of you use Spotify. But down below each episode is I think it's like a little link or something that basically shows, hey, you can go here and support the channel. I'm actually going to look right now to see how that's actually set up. Hopefully I don't knock the microphone over again. Maybe it's on the main page. But, yeah, it's on the main page. if you hit where it says, where it gives a little blurb of the channel, if you hit see more, it says support this podcast, anchor.fm/Jeremy-Colston/support. And you can support the channel. There's not really any perks with it just yet, mainly because I've not really gotten much support on it. But and I'm trying to figure out what I can do to maybe set up a monthly subscription. And honestly, it may come down to the monthly subscription isn't necessarily something that has a lot of perks to it just yet. It's more of just you supporting the channel to continue this and to help it grow. But yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening in today. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and let's go home.